Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. There comes a moment in your life, and it always comes, when you realize something painful. No one's coming to save you, not your friends, not society, not even your father, but not because he didn't love you. It's because he was fighting his own demons, carrying fears he never spoke of, hiding wounds so deep they never healed. So he couldn't prepare you for the real world, a world that respects force, not kindness, discipline, not dreams, power, not innocence. You stepped into this game blind. No one told you that kindness without strength makes you prey, that people remember what you gave them, but forget you the second they're done using you. No one warned you that life isn't fair, moral, or balanced. Life is strategic. This video isn't about comfort. It's not about healing. It's about transformation. Over the next 40 minutes, you'll uncover the truths men whisper behind closed doors. The truths that separate predators from the passive, the respected from the ignored, the men who rise from the men who kneel. From a young age, you were trained to be useful, to help, to fix, to be the good son. And without even noticing, you became the man who carries everyone's weight, except his own. But here's the truth your father never gave you. Machiavelli once said, "The man who becomes essential to others ceases to be essential to himself." Power belongs not to the available, but to the inaccessible. People don't admire the man who solves their problems. They expect him to. They lean on him. They drain him. And when he collapses, they step over his body and find the next man to use. That's the tragedy of the dependable man. He becomes a silent servant, wearing the mask of a friend, a son, a partner, a brother. And the world, it never apologizes, because usefulness does not equal respect. Usefulness is just utility, and utility gets replaced the moment someone cheaper, faster, or easier shows up. You weren't raised to be powerful. You were raised to be available. You answered every call, calmed every storm, fixed every mistake, thinking it would bring loyalty, gratitude, influence. But you were lied to. Power doesn't come from serving everyone. It comes from being the man who isn't easily accessed. Look around your life. Notice this pattern. The people you chase never chase you. The ones you prioritize give you leftovers. The ones you rescue never return the favor. Why? Because you trained them to see your time as cheap. Humans don't respect abundance. They respect scarcity. And you made yourself endlessly available. Every time you rushed to help, you said, "You owe me nothing. I'll still show up." Every time you said, "Don't worry about it," you taught them, "My energy has no price." Every time you forgave disrespect, you taught them, "My boundaries are soft." So when you finally try to draw the line, they look confused, because you're breaking the rules you created. Let this sink in. People treat you exactly how you trained them to. If you've become the man everyone uses, you've also become the man no one considers. Machiavelli once said, "Power does not dwell in the hands of the always available. It belongs to the rare, the distant, the man whose presence must be earned." Now, look at the men who are truly respected. They're not always available. They're selectively accessible, and only to those who've earned it. Power doesn't come from being needed. Power comes from being rare. Scarce presence equals high value. Limited availability equals higher respect. Firm boundaries equals unshakable influence. But don't expect this shift to happen through words. Words mean nothing to people who already labeled you. You must transform through behavior. Here's how. Stop solving problems you didn't create. If someone makes a mistake, let them fix it. Responsibility creates growth and protects your energy. say no without explanation. A weak man apologizes for protecting his time. A strong man knows no is a full sentence. Be unpredictable in your availability. If they always know you'll answer, they'll stop valuing the call. When they don't know when you'll respond, they adjust their tone. Show up for yourself first. You can't carry everyone else's fire if your own flame is dying. Reward reciprocity, not dependency. If someone only appears when they need something, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. And here's the twist. The moment you stop being endlessly useful, the opportunists vanish. But the real ones, they stay. That's the purification every man needs. And yes, this shift will feel uncomfortable because you've spent years being the dependable one, the helper, the fixer, the man who always puts others first. But hear this clearly. That version of you wasn't built for power, it was built for survival. The world respects a man who is stable, but it fears a man who is selective. Your goal isn't to be needed by everyone. Your goal is to be respected by the right ones and untouchable to the wrong ones. When you stop being constantly available, you won't lose people, you'll lose parasites. And what remains? Your core, your strength, your transformation. Most men are not controlled by force, they're controlled by emotion. They explode when challenged, panic under pressure, chase when rejected, break when abandoned, collapse when affection is withdrawn. This is why most men lose, not because someone beat them, but because they never learned to stay cold. Machiavelli once said, "The man who masters coldness commands chaos. He does not resist emotion, he outlasts it." The world is not kind to emotional men. Emotional men negotiate poorly. They trade discipline for comfort. They stay in weak relationships, terrified of being alone. They hold back potential, afraid someone won't approve. They get manipulated because they're easy to trigger. And most fatally, they become predictable. And predictable men become puppets. Power belongs to the man who stays calm while everyone else is bleeding inside. Coldness is not cruelty. Coldness is clarity. It's the discipline to see things as they are, not as you hope them to be. It's the strength to act from strategy, not sympathy. To remain steady when someone tries to guilt-trip you, provoke you, or trap you emotionally. The cold man, he doesn't lash out, he doesn't beg, he doesn't explain himself. He watches, he studies, he moves only when the outcome serves his long game. He doesn't get pulled into chaos. He watches others drown in it. His detachment is his shield, his silence is his sword. Machiavelli once said, "To rule yourself, learn to disappoint others without guilt. Mercy without boundaries invites betrayal." There are moments in every man's life when kindness becomes a trap, when forgiveness is surrender, and when empathy is used as a weapon against you. People will exploit the softness you show them. They will weaponize your loyalty. They'll twist your fear of hurting them into leverage, to push you into decisions that destroy you. That's why necessary cruelty exists. Necessary cruelty is not about wanting to hurt anyone. It's the ability to choose your future, your peace, and your power, even if it disappoints, shocks, or angers others. Sometimes you'll need to walk away without explaining, end things without comforting them, say no without softening your tone. Choose yourself so completely, they'll call you heartless. Let them. Because a man with no boundaries will always be betrayed. A man with no self-respect will always be mistreated. and a man who avoids conflict becomes a playground for those who live to create it. You're not here to be agreeable, you're here to advance, to build a life that protects you, elevates you, and makes you untouchable. Emotional men. They give up their vision for temporary approval. Cold men. They sacrifice approval for permanent power. And when you stop operating from emotion, a new version of you is born. You stop overreacting, you stop chasing, you stop arguing, you stop justifying, you stop expecting fairness from the unfair, you stop giving your energy to those who drain it, and most importantly, you stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Your decisions sharpen, your presence grows heavier, your time becomes precious, your relationships become crystal clear, and suddenly, people stop playing games with you because they can't read you, they can't predict you, they can't control you. Your silence makes them nervous, your indifference makes them careful, your calmness makes them question themselves. Machiavelli once said, "A man who seeks permission to rise will always kneel before those who never deserved the throne." This is what the world respects, not the man who's nice, but the man who's not easily moved, not the one who reacts, but the one who calculates, not the one who pleases, but the one who can't be controlled. They may not like you, but they'll think twice before crossing you. They might gossip, but they'll respect your boundaries. They could misunderstand you, but they'll never underestimate you. While emotional men burn out, you stay unshaken, unbothered, unbreakable, because power requires cold hands, not frozen by fear, but steady with discipline. The man who stays calm under pressure becomes the man who sets the rules. And in a world that rewards dominance, not sensitivity, it's the cold-handed man who walks forward while everyone else trembles. But here's the truth. A man's greatest weakness is believing he needs permission to live the life he wants. He waits for validation from friends, from family, from partners, from strangers on the internet. He craves applause before he begins, encouragement before he commits, reassurance before he takes even one step. That's why most men never rise. They're addicted to approval. They move only when someone nods, shrink when someone frowns. Their entire path shaped by the opinions of people who don't even respect themselves. Approval is a cage, disguised as comfort. But every dangerous, powerful, legendary man built without permission. Because approval weakens you. It forces you to compromise your truth just to be accepted. Turns your dreams into a vote where everyone else decides your worth. And the moment your identity depends on their opinion, you belong to them. You start dressing for them, speaking for them, dreaming for them, failing for them. And worst of all, you forget who you were meant to become. Machiavelli once said, "He who waits for the crowd to understand him will die as one of them." A powerful man never asks for permission. He builds a life that mirrors his vision, not the world's expectations, but that path. It demands what most men never develop: the strength to be disliked, the willingness to disappoint, the courage to walk alone. Approval-addicted men fear isolation more than mediocrity. They fear judgment more than regret. They would rather fit in than rise up, so they shrink. They say yes when they should say no. They dim their light just to make others comfortable. And years later, they stare back at a life wasted, all because they wanted to be understood. Freedom is not handed to you. It begins the moment you stop caring about the opinions of people who don't live your life and don't carry your consequences. That's why true independence starts inside, not by following outside voices, but by following your inner command. A man who lives for public approval will never own his future. He will always bend to the nearest frown. The world is filled with men who could have built empires, but chose comfort, because comfort is applauded, and risk, it's criticized. But once you no longer crave applause, life changes. Your decisions become strategic, not emotional. You stop explaining, you stop justifying, you stop begging others to be okay with your growth. You prioritize mission over misunderstanding, evolution over expectation, and something powerful happens. The world stops controlling you. They'll talk, but their words lose weight. They'll guilt you, but guilt loses power. They'll withdraw approval, but you won't need it to breathe. Because the moment approval loses its value, your life becomes yours again, and that is when you finally begin to rise. You build skills for yourself, not for applause. You pursue goals that scare you, not goals that impress others. You make decisions based on long-term gain, not short-term acceptance. You develop the courage to leave situations, relationships, careers, and environments that no longer align with your future. And the fear of being judged dissolves, because judgment only affects the man who still needs approval. Once you stop needing it, the world loses its power over you. Machiavelli once said, "The man who does not seek approval is the only one they cannot command." You begin to draw a new line in your mind. I do not live for them. I do not ask them. I do not wait for them. I do not explain myself to them. I do not need them. People will call you selfish. That is because your existence is no longer arranged around their comfort. People will call you arrogant. That is because you now choose yourself with conviction. People will call you cold. That is because they can no longer control you. But you must accept this, because the alternative is a lifetime spent shrinking yourself to fit inside other people's expectations. A man who does not need approval becomes uncontrollable, unpredictable, uninfluenced, and therefore free. The day you stop asking for permission is the day you take ownership of your life. And once a man owns his life fully, he becomes unstoppable. A man's value is measured by the price of his access. If it's easy to reach you, easy to influence you, easy to drain you, then it becomes easy for them to disrespect you. Most men miss this. They make themselves available to everyone, every call, every message, every crisis, every complaint. Why? Because they think it makes them a good man. But it doesn't. It makes them a doormat with a pulse. When people can contact you anytime, they stop approaching you with respect. When they can interrupt you on command, they start believing their time is worth more than yours. When they know you'll always pick up, the call loses value. When they know you'll always be there, your presence becomes forgettable. Machiavelli once said, "If they can reach you any time, they will never look up to you." A man who is constantly accessible cannot be respected. Availability kills mystery, kills authority, kills presence. The most respected men, they're not always around. They appear on their own terms. The king behind closed doors holds more power than the servant always within reach, because every relationship on earth operates on one law. People value what they cannot easily obtain. This law governs love, friendship, leadership, business, even family. When you give people unlimited access to your time, energy, and focus, you teach them something dangerous, that you're not a priority, you're a convenience. You become the emotional landfill, the dumping ground for other people's problems. Why? Because they know you'll always sit there and listen. You become the spare wheel, only called upon when something else fails. But the biggest mistake a man can make? Giving emotional access for free, letting them drain your energy, letting them use you as a therapist, a distraction, a comfort zone. Machiavelli once said, "He who grants emotional access without cost soon pays with his peace." Emotional access is the most expensive currency a man has. Yet most men give it away like cheap candy. Every time you open your mind, your heart, your peace to someone who hasn't earned it, you give them the power to influence you. And influence is power. If someone can shift your mood, cloud your mind, impact your decisions, or drain your energy, they own a part of you. You must reclaim that ownership, not with anger, not with hostility, but with ruthless selectivity. Not everyone deserves your presence, your time, your thoughts, your plans, your emotional world. You must become the kind of man whose presence feels rare, whose silence feels heavy, whose energy feels expensive. This shift changes everything. The moment people realize access is no longer free, their tone changes, their words sharpen, their approach becomes intentional, they stop taking you for granted. And yes, some will disappear entirely. That is a gift. Anyone who leaves because they can't freely drain you was never there for you. They were there for the access. Here's the dark truth. When you restrict access, people will get uncomfortable. They'll say, "You've changed. You're distant. You're cold. You're selfish." But understand this. They're not mad because you changed. They're mad because their free access to you is gone. They were benefiting from the older version of you, the one who overextended, the one who gave too much, the one who never said no. Your evolution will make some people uneasy, but their feelings, not your responsibility. You are not responsible for managing reactions to your boundaries. You are responsible for protecting your time, your energy, your peace, your focus. Because these are the currencies of power. These are what shape your future. These are what define your strength. Machiavelli once said, "Let your absence teach them what your presence was worth." Every minute wasted on the wrong people is a minute stolen from the man you're becoming. When you stop being freely available, you force others to either step up or step out. You stop being an option. You stop being taken for granted. People begin to respect your time because you respect it. They value your presence because it's no longer cheap. They adjust to you because you've stopped adjusting for them. So never allow access to be free. Make your time cost something. Effort, respect, loyalty, consistency, discipline. Make your presence meaningful through scarcity. Make your silence heavy. Make your energy expensive. Because when access to you becomes a privilege, you become a man no one wants to lose. Silence, one of the most dangerous weapons a man can possess. Yet no one ever teaches you how to wield it. You were told, talk it out. Explain yourself. Speak your truth. And you believed, if you're honest, people will understand. If you're clear, they'll respect you. But here's the real world truth. The more you speak, the more people measure you. The more you explain, the more they doubt you. The more you express, the more they use your words against you. A man who talks too much reveals everything. His fears, his insecurities, his desires, his emotional triggers. He becomes predictable, and predictable men are easy to control. People study your reactions, memorize your patterns, then turn them into weapons. This is why the loudest man in the room is never the one with power. True power belongs to the man who can sit in absolute silence and remain unshaken. Machiavelli once said, "A silent man forces the world to imagine his power." Because when you reduce your words, you increase your mystery, and mystery breeds influence. People start to guess, they overthink, they reshape their behavior around you, they tiptoe, they hesitate. Your silence becomes their pressure, your calm becomes their confusion, and in that confusion they treat you with more caution, more respect, sometimes even fear. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. And the man who speaks only when it matters controls what matters. Most men talk because they can't control their emotions. They talk to release tension, fill silence, prove their worth, be understood, be liked. But every unnecessary word, a leak in your power, every emotional outburst, a drop in your status, every over-explanation, a sign you're still begging for approval. Nothing destroys masculine presence faster than verbal insecurity. The strong man doesn't speak to comfort himself. He speaks to shape reality. His words are measured, intentional, rare. Because he knows scarcity breeds value. A single sentence from a disciplined man can silence a room. People lean in not because he's loud, but because they know he doesn't waste breath. Machiavelli once said, "Men fail not from weakness, but from revealing their strength too early." And then there's a deeper danger, speaking your plans too soon. This is how many men destroy their futures. The moment you announce a dream, you awaken envy, resistance, sabotage. Some will mock you, some will doubt you, some will smile while praying you fail. Men with fragile discipline reveal their ambitions early. Men with true power move in silence and let their results do the talking. Every move is stronger when unseen. Every goal is safer when protected. Every win is louder when it arrives without warning. Silence shields your direction. It blinds your enemies. It protects your mission. Let your success be heard, but let your path remain invisible. When you stop talking and simply start doing, you become unpredictable and uncontrollable. In conflict, the man who speaks less always wins. The one who reacts emotionally, he gives the other control. Silence forces the truth out. They reveal their intentions. They expose their weakness. They collapse under pressure while you remain still, focused. Unreadable, and an unreadable man is the most dangerous man in the room. Machiavelli once said, "The man who says little but sees everything governs those who shout and see nothing." Silence is not passive. Silence is pressure. Silence is a test. It breaks fake confidence. It exposes hidden motives. It destroys emotional instability. A man who can stay silent in chaos controls the environment. A man who pauses before he speaks sees with clarity. A man who observes before acting gains every advantage. But silence alone isn't enough. Silence must be paired with presence. Without presence, silence is invisibility. With presence, silence becomes dominance. You build presence through calm posture, strong eye contact, controlled breath, emotional discipline. When you mix presence with silence, you become impossible to read, impossible to control, impossible to ignore. You intimidate without aggression. You influence without force. You command without trying. This is what your father never taught you. Powerful men are not loud. They're not desperate for attention. They don't seek validation with words. They let silence do the heavy lifting. Master silence, and the world will lean in to hear your next word. Every man wants strength, but few are willing to earn it. True strength isn't built through comfort or applause. It's forged in solitude. When there's no noise, no praise, no hand to hold, only you versus you. Most men never become powerful because they can't face silence. They fear stillness. They fear their own mind. Machiavelli once said, "The man who stands alone builds a strength no crowd can grant and no enemy can break." A man who depends on others for confidence, joy, or motivation will always be controlled. The moment support is withdrawn, he falls. That's not strength. That's borrowed stability. To stand alone means you stop waiting. You stop relying. You build yourself. You become the foundation, not the one who leans. Your confidence comes from evidence, your discipline from consistency, your clarity from silence. Because real power begins when no one is clapping and you keep going anyway. This is not loneliness. Loneliness is needing people to feel full. Solitude is feeling powerful without them. Solitude sharpens a man. It forces him to face his weaknesses, to shape his own identity, not absorb someone else's. It builds a man who is self-responsible, self-governing, self-directed. Machiavelli once said, "The man who knows himself needs no audience to feel complete and no permission to feel powerful." No man becomes dangerous until he learns to thrive in his own company. Most men don't realize their identity is borrowed, their interests, values, dreams shaped by friends, family, partners, society. When you never step away from influence, you can't know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you'll never master yourself. Solitude brings clarity. You begin to see who truly adds value and who only takes. When you're no longer afraid to lose people, you start attracting the right ones. When you stop depending on others to feel whole, your relationships stop being chains and become choices. Your independence shifts the power dynamic. You no longer cling, chase, or compromise out of fear. You become the man who can walk away from anyone and anything, not because you're cold, but because you choose connection, not crave it. You don't crumble when someone leaves. You don't fold under guilt, threats, or manipulation. You are no longer ruled by the fear of loss, and that's what makes you dangerous. You stop negotiating from weakness. You don't tie your identity to relationships. You don't depend on approval. You are whole by yourself. Machiavelli once said, "He who needs nothing holds the power to change everything." This kind of man is unpredictable, and unpredictable men hold all the leverage. But understand this, standing alone isn't a phase, it's a standard. It's a lifelong discipline. It means building alone, training alone, grinding alone, facing long nights of doubt alone, and still rising with no applause. This level of strength requires emotional maturity, mental resilience, the courage to walk a lonely path no one understands, but it creates a calm people feel the moment you enter, a presence that demands respect without a word, a distance that isn't hostile, just powerful. When you walk into a room fully grounded in yourself, without needing approval or company, you shift the atmosphere. People feel it, some admire it, some fear it, but no one ignores it. A man who can stand alone cannot be broken. Rejection can't shake him. Silence can't intimidate him. Loneliness can't weaken him. He becomes self-sustaining, solid, and defined, a force the world must adjust to. There comes a time in a man's life when evolution is no longer optional. You feel it, that quiet pressure in your chest, a hunger that refuses to die, a knowing that the version of you chasing approval, numbing pain, and waiting for permission cannot carry you any further. Most men run from this feeling. They bury it under comfort, distraction, and fear. But not you. Not anymore. Reinvention begins when you stop protecting your own weakness, when you stop treating time like it's infinite, when you stop clinging to the man who has already failed you. Machiavelli once said, "The man who dares to destroy himself holds the privilege to rebuild without limit." A man's life transforms the moment he chooses to become unrecognizable to who he used to be. This requires destruction. Destroy the version of you that settles. Destroy the excuses you've repeated for years. Destroy the illusion that comfort equals peace. Reinvention is brutal. It isn't made of dreams and quotes. It's forged in confrontation. It's when you look in the mirror and finally admit the truth without filters. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you treated discipline like survival? What would your future be if you attacked growth the same way you've been avoiding discomfort? Most men never rise because they won't shed the identity that's been holding them down. But you can't stand tall while chained to the life that made you small. Reinvention demands separation. You will lose people. Good. You will outgrow environments. Necessary. You will shed old identities. Required. The man you are becoming cannot fit inside the world you built while asleep. This is the cycle of true power. Death, then rebirth. Collapse, then reconstruction. When the new version of you rises, everything shifts. Your presence, your standards, your words, your mindset. People notice, even if they can't explain it. You don't walk to avoid conflict. You walk prepared for it. You don't speak to be heard. You speak because silence is no longer an option. You don't wait for things to improve. You become the improvement. That's what reinvention gives you. A spine, a mission, a presence, a power that needs no approval. The men who rise aren't the smartest or the luckiest. They're the ones who decide to become a different beast entirely. Sharper, colder, more focused, unstoppable. Now you stand at that threshold. Everything you've heard wasn't for comfort. It was meant to provoke you. You already know who you can become. You know what you need to do, and you know the cost of staying the same. This is your moment. Step into it. Reinvent yourself into a man the world cannot ignore, even if it tries. If this lit something inside you, drop this in the comments. I destroy my limits and rebuild my destiny. If it woke the part of you that refuses to die quietly, then like the video, subscribe to the channel, and take the next step. This is only the beginning.